Just like everyone else, I wasn't excited about Toy Story 4. But I was open-minded, and before going to see it, I decided to rewatch all the Toy Stories to kind of get in the mood for the movie and also to make sure I didn't compare Toy Story 4 to some glorified version of the earlier movies in my mind. After watching 4, I was moved, like I always am after watching a Toy Story. But I was also kind of sad. I wasn't just emotional, there was something in me that didn't feel right. And I think that was disappointment. I have complicated feelings about Toy Story 4. It's definitely a good movie, it has good stuff in it. But to me, it didn't justify its existence. We live in an era of remakes and sequels, so I think we've all learned to feel this weird paradox of a feeling. Something can be good, but still something that we wish didn't exist. There seems to be a good chance or risk that the Toy Story universe is going to become another cinematic hamster wheel of nostalgia pandering blockbusters. And since people have paid for this movie and seem to love this movie, who could blame them? To understand why I didn't love Toy Story 4, I have to explain my views on the previous films. 1 is genius, 2 is not genius, but pretty good, and it has a lot in common with 4. I'll make a series of videos where I analyze the Toy Story movies. At the end, I will discuss how I would rewrite Toy Story 4. There will be a lot of spoilers for all 4 movies, so do watch them before hearing what I have to say. So, Toy Story is a product of limitations. The reason it's a story about toys is because Pixar didn't yet have the confidence to make something with humans. They had to make Bugs Life, Toy Story 2, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, before they could finally make something featuring actual humans, or animated. The reason Toy Story is so short, 81 minutes, is also probably a result of limitations. Pixar's unique take on toys is one I don't think any other studio would attempt, at least not in 1995. The movie is not only about, hey, wouldn't it be funny if toys were alive? It's more importantly about, hey, wouldn't it be emotionally and philosophically fascinating and horrifying if toys were alive? So here's the deal. Woody is the leader of the toys. Clearly, he's not a democratically elected leader. His position seems to be justified by him being Andy's favorite toy, a kind of might makes right kind of situation, or popularity makes might situation. Actually, it's almost like how theocracies and absolute monarchies justify themselves, where the ruler's title is motivated because God has chosen them and so on. But of course, Woody isn't really a dictator. He doesn't seem to have any control of police force, violence like military, so there's no real consequence to the toys not listening to his orders. Woody, however, seems to think that being Andy's favorite toy makes him a leader, and that he became the favorite toy because of his own merits. Of course, that doesn't make any sense. All he does is to stay mobile when Andy's playing with him. It's a very passive act. By definition, he's doing nothing to earn his title. He just happens to have the right aesthetics and features. So it's Andy's birthday and the other toys are afraid of being replaced. And as a leader, Woody tries to comfort them. But he's not really comforting them. He's just dismissing their worries.
This is Andy we're talking about.
It doesn't matter how much we're played with.
This clearly reflects his own attitude to the problem. He doesn't want to think about being replaced, doesn't even want to consider it as a possibility that he'll lose the throne.
I'm not worried. You shouldn't be worried.
Of course Woody ain't worried. He's been Andy's favorite since kindergarten.
Then Buzz arrives. Woody is replaced by a new, shiny space toy. Here starts Woody's psychological coping process. As it becomes more and more evident that he's clearly being replaced, he gets confused, disconnected. Buzz does nothing to get Andy's love and attention, yet takes his place as favorite toy, in addition to taking his place as the most popular toy in the toy community. The montage with the song Strange Things by Randy Newman demonstrates his thoughts and feelings quite clearly. The world is changing around him, everybody is okay with it, and he just doesn't understand what's going on or why it's going on. And this is because it goes against his ideology. He thought this world was a meritocracy, that he deserved his position as favorite toy because of his personality, and because his leadership, and because how he was always there for Andy and so on. Buzz clearly doesn't deserve to take his place. He's deluded, weird, and he doesn't even know he's a darn toy. Woody doesn't want to understand why he's being replaced. It's not just because of jealousy that he's feeling so bad, it's because he built an entire worldview around his self-image. Buzz has replaced him because a title like Favorite Toy is just based on shallow stuff that it can't control, like gadgets and appearance, but he can't admit this to himself. That would mean he has to realize that this is no meritocracy, and that the reason he's been Andy's favorite toy all these years is just based on pretty shallow stuff, like his hat, boots, voice box. According to psychologist and epistemologist Sean Pichet, this is called accommodation. He's not learning something that adds to his current understanding of the world. That would be what Piaget calls assimilation. Instead, the knowledge he's acquiring is in conflict with his previous ideas, and it's forcing him to reevaluate his views. Instead of passively watching his throne being seized, he's going to prove that his power actually is based on his actions, not just random factors beyond his control. So he confronts Buzz and tries to expose him as a fool who doesn't even know he's a toy, but nobody really sees it or cares about it. Soon he gets another chance to take control of his destiny. Andy is only allowed to bring one toy to Pizza Planet. Is he going to watch as Andy brings Buzz again? Of course not. This is his chance. If Woody and Andy have fun at Pizza Planet, maybe Andy will remember why he used to love his cowboy buddy in the first place. Woody's not confused anymore. He's bitter, angry, tired of being treated like a piece of fabric. You know what happens next. He accidentally pushes Buzz out the window. It's a mistake, but it doesn't look good at all. Especially since Woody ultimately is the one who gets picked to go to Pizza Planet. Looks like his plan succeeded. The writers then use a device most commonly used in romantic movies and in buddy cop movies. Two characters with conflicting values are put in a situation together against their own will. This is one of the reasons Toy Story is such a character-driven movie. The story is primarily moved forward through the conflict between Woody and Buzz. Like when they start fighting and get left behind on a gas station. Or when Woody tricks Buzz into following to Pizza Planet by yelling spaceship. Their journey as lost toys is also good because of the high stakes which have been established in earlier scenes. The entire intro with the plastic soldiers spying mission establishes that this is a dangerous world for a toy. Even these small guys who seem very experienced and professional cannot voyage through the house without someone getting stepped on and badly wounded. And another thing which raises the stakes is that only 25 minutes into the movie, a toy is actually killed. He's blown up by Sid and his parts are scattered around the lawn. This is the only time a toy actually dies in one of the Toy Story movies. We see what can happen to toys, and we see what Sid is capable of, and it makes him a pretty scary villain. So then they get trapped at Sid's house, and it's really scary. Toys don't die. Even when they're taken apart and remodeled, they don't die. And again, we see what cruel things Sid is capable of. The more powerful the villain, the more powerful the story, is a good rule of thumb. Eventually, Buzz walks into his dad's room. Nice touch also with all the empty beer cans, a subtle way to say that this toxic kid is a product of bad parents, not just vicious for the sake of being vicious. When he sees the Buzz Lightyear ad, this movie starts going all existential again. Now it starts examining Buzz's psychology, and it's maybe one of my favorite parts of any movie ever. Imagine how traumatizing it would be to realize you're not special. There are hundreds of you on the shelf. You're a child's plaything.
It's your space wings! To infinity and beyond!
Not a flying toy.
Get your Buzz Lightyear action figure and save the galaxy near you! Buzz Lightyear!
But of course, Buzz still doesn't give up. He climbs up and tries to fly. This attempt is suicidal, showing what's at stake for him. He identifies with his ability to fly so much that he kinda doesn't care about being alive if he's no longer able to do it. Now, you might see this scene and think that it's too much. He just saw the ad. Why does he even try to fly? Is he stupid? Is he blind? But I think you should consider this. Buzz's worldview isn't something he came up with himself. It's not a product of his environment. It's very biological. It's how he's wired. It's probably as strong as his survival instincts. And on top of that, he already flied once in the past. And everybody praised him for it. And the smart thing is that he was flying with his eyes closed that time. So to him, it wasn't just gymnastics or falling with style. He was actually convinced that he actually flied with his own jetpack and wings. So yes, it's fully motivated that he jumps, even though it's kind of suicidal. After the fall, the traumatic experience, he gets an existential crisis. It's dark, it's funny, and it's awfully relatable. He goes through several stages, not unlike how Woody did after being replaced by him.
To infinity and beyond.
It's all gone. All of it's gone. Bye-bye. Woo, see ya.
What happened to you?
One minute you're defending the whole galaxy, and suddenly you find yourself sucking down Darjeeling with
Marie Antoinette and her little sister. I think you've had enough tea for today. Let's get you out of here, Buzz.
Don't you get it? You see the hat? I am Mrs. Nesbit.
Snap out of it, Buzz!
I'm sorry. You're right. I am just a little depressed. That's all. I can get through this.
Oh, I'm a sham. Look at me. I can't even fly out of a window. But the hat looked good. Tell me the hat looked good. The apron is a bit much.
Out
Son, my-
the window, Buzz! You're a genius! We're gonna get out of here, Buzz! Buzz?
We also get this lovely scene where the cannibals, as Woody calls them, turn out to be nice. But at this point, Buzz doesn't care about his arm being fixed. He doesn't care about anything. He doesn't even care that it's being blown up next day. So eventually Woody confesses his jealousy for Buzz. At this point, Woody has given up. To me, it's clear that he doesn't say this to manipulate Buzz into helping him. He's just telling him how he feels. He's being genuine for maybe the first time.
I'm the one that should be strapped to that rocket.
And that's when Buzz decides to help Woody up. It might seem like a fast turn, he was just at the bottom. But from the bottom, there's only one way to go, which is up. If Woody's words sparked just a little bit of joy in him, then it makes sense that he's trying to flee. After all, it's either that or being blown to pieces. And also, he gets to be a hero, but as a toy instead of a space ranger. This is the core of the movie. It's about the psychology of these wonderful but flawed toys. And without helping it, we see the toys as metaphors for our own existential processes in life. Sid doesn't really have to be more than a powerful and scary villain, because the real demons are inside the head of these toys. Woody wants power and control, but he needs to let go of his ego and learn to accept that being there for friends and for Andy is more important.
It doesn't matter how much we're played with. What matters is that we're here for Andy when he needs us. That's what we're made for, right?
Buzz wants to be important and a superhero, but he needs to find joy in a simpler, less exciting life as a toy. It's about letting go of our deluded self-images, our selfishness, our jealousy, and our weird worldviews, so we can focus on what matters, being there for others. Even though the movie is kind of short, it doesn't feel too fast. In fact, at times it kind of feels slow for a children's movie. It feels slower than some of the other Toy Stories. The limited space that the characters operate in puts the characters in the center. It's a movie that knows its limits and turns these limits into its strength, perhaps more so than any other movie I've ever seen. If you ask me, it's almost as near a perfect movie as you can possibly get.
Oh, now, Buzz, what could Andy possibly get that is worse than you?
Oh, what is it? What is it? Wow, a puppy!
Thanks for watching. I'm glad I kept this video under 20 minutes. I hope you subscribe. And join me next time when I will explain why Toy Story 2 is not a perfect movie, which will be crucial to understanding why Toy Story 4 is really not a perfect movie.